Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness brought to you by DraftKings and their app Pick Six. Sign up with code Madness6 for up to $50 in free credits. This is LZ. I'm here with Nick. Today on the show, we have Matt Sposta, founder and CEO of Trove and Shoebox AI Grading. Matt is like really plugged in on just everything to do with the hobby for whatever reason. And we're going to get into why and how. So we just want to just cut it up with them, ask them some questions. We're going to cover AI grading. We're going to cover the Paul Skenes card, because I know we're all thinking about that lately. And we're just going to dive into a lot of other things. So Matt, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, second
actually.
show. Second show. First time
Yeah,
with us.
I'm excited to be here with the two of you. I mean, the first show I was just with Nick, but being with Nick and LZ, I feel like the energy is gonna be off the charts for
Yeah, for sure. It's actually scary how much crap you know about the hobby. Just I think by being a part of Trove and an AI grading company, so it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where the bodies
just
are buried.
Yeah, you do know where the bodies are buried, right? How are you plugged in so much? Is it because of Trove? Is it before Trove? Is it?
Yeah, look, I mean, Trove helps. My entire career, I've been building networks. I have a massive network from the financial world when I was there. I've been building in venture for a long time. Venture allows you to connect the dots to a lot of people, whether investors, operators, executives. My first company I sold to a public company, and that was in the sports world, and I was very connected with sports team owners and athletes and entertainers and agents. So like once you get plugged into this world and this ecosystem, you realize how many of these players behind the scenes are involved in all these areas, right?
Yeah.
I've also been at the forefront of a lot of like innovative, new technology that comes to market. So whether it's like fantasy gaming, crypto, anything blockchain related, digital collectibles, physical collectibles, and really everything that I'm doing is at the intersection of that. And it's all kind of like crashing together right now in this kind of new digital world. And it's just awesome. It's exciting to see come together. And again, a lot of the same players start popping up in these areas. A lot of the guys with money end up chasing kind of the new asset classes that come to light, the stuff that's hot. And the Sotheby's show is like a perfect example, right? So Sotheby's, I've developed a relationship with the guy who's leading the Sotheby's collectibles division. They did the Holy Grails event, which was like, we went to a cool event, the Tom Brady auction.
Yeah.
The Holy Grails event that Fanatics hosted with Sotheby's was probably one of the craziest rooms that I've ever been in. Now I've seen a lot of stuff.
And that was the one before this one, right, Matt?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so when we went to the show, I was like getting LZ ready. I was like, yo, you may see this guy, you may see this guy.
Brady's
But
gonna be there. Get ready. We got to talk to Brady. What are you gonna say to him first? And I'm like, I was getting ready. I'm like, all right, Tom. All right, I'm ready. Here we go.
the first event felt like it was like the white party, the Michael Rubin's white party that I would have wanted to be at, right?
Yeah.
So I walk in, the first person I see is Rubin's there. He bought Brady, obviously, and he had Robert Kraft next to him. So I was like, all right, this is what this night's going to be like. We're talking about like a room of 100 people, and I'm looking around, and there are a handful of hobby guys, like guys that are pretty well known, guys like Ezra Levine and guys like Buster. And but then it was just like everyone else. You had sports team owners. You had Shad Khan, owner of the Jags, or Robert Kraft, who I mentioned. You had, Harris and Blitzer were there. And it was just like a who's who. And then all of a sudden I'm like, who's that guy? Looks familiar. It's like, oh, that's Malik Neighbors. I'm like, oh, cool, Malik's here. And then I look up and it's like, that guy's huge. Who's that? I was like, wait a minute, that's Taco Fall. Like, what's Taco Fall doing?
Taco Fall. We know who Taco Fall is.
He's like 7'2". I'm like, no, he's like maybe even taller than that.
I think he's taller. Yeah.
And then you had guys like Meek Mill, and then you had guys like Rob Goff, who were just like big collectors, and just watching these guys. And Ruben pulled out all the stops for this. He did the right thing. He brought these people to the table because all of a sudden Brady's sitting next to Bob Kraft, and guess who's bidding on Brady's rookie card, right? That's a debut ticket, and all of a sudden, Robert Kraft's raising his hand. He spends $1 million on Brady's card. He's like, he looks over, he's like, I love you, Tommy, like a son. It's just like that moment.
Very
and
cool.
like, sure, some of this like a little forced, yeah. But like, as long as I've been in the hobby, No one's ever done anything like this.
No.
So like all of this stuff is great for the hobby.
So speaking of no one ever doing anything in the hobby, let's get to Paul Skenes and the debut patch card, because that is something brand new to the hobby. It's making a ton of noise and news and tons of conspiracies. So spill the tea here, brother. What do you know about Paul Skenes? Like, let's talk about it. Like, because there's a lot of drama happening right now.
Yeah, so let's back up a little bit. So, like, I think everyone's been critical of Fanatics for everything they've done. I give them a lot of credit. Panini never went out and marketed the industry in the way that they have. They've done a lot of new things. This debut patch, and I think this was Mayhan's idea, is an absolute like banger. Like they nailed this, right?
Agreed.
They created this amazing chase card and a product that doesn't have many, chase cards, and they created a lot of hysteria around this, which is awesome. Say all we want about the breakers and who's actually hitting these things. This was actually a really good story if it was truly hit by a young kid, who bought a box. And this is like the aspirational thing. And I say, like, Fanatics' main goal here should be focusing on the next generation collector. And like, this is the aspirational story for the next gen kid, right? This is what I would have dreamed of as a kid.
All right, hold on.
This is way too corporate, dude.
Yeah. Well, so do you both believe that? Do you both believe it was 11-year-olds? What were your thoughts? What's your sniff test tell you?
You want to go first, Matt?
Yeah. So again, what I was going to say is this was the nice part of the story if it was in fact true.
Okay.
No one knows how true it is, and we can walk through the timeline. But the way that the news started coming out and the way they were sequencing the news, there was like a release that was made prior to the main release from Fanatics Collect, but Topps released different information, and whether they just disseminated the information incorrectly or out of sequence, it all of a sudden started feeling like things weren't adding up. And then, you look at this 11-year-old kid writing in his diary, talking about how it's a dream come true. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, which PR team wrote this letter? I was like, this is crazy. I was like, this is too much. I was like, the initial story was great. This is too much. And then to add on top of that, we've seen obviously Ken Golden be vocal about it. But the fact that the card magically was announced that it was hit in December, but it just appeared one day. Within 24 hours, that card was shipped to High End Case Break. Shout out to High End Case Break. Sean is actually a really great guy and a good friend.
I talked to him, and I'm going to air some of that after you're done.
He does a very good job, so don't say anything mean. But it got to Sean. Sean does walkthrough service with PSA. It got a 10-10, sure. And then before anyone could even talk to this kid,
walkthrough service.
I caught that.
Walkthrough service,
sure.
aka 10-10 private jet. But we'll go there in a second.
Whatever.
Okay.
But before anyone could talk to this kid and give him guaranteed money up front, like Ken usually offers, this thing is already on Fanatics Collect. It's already announced that it's going to Fanatics Collect. Now, that's where this whole thing with Fanatics becomes a huge conflict of interest, because they own all of these different pieces within the flywheel. And you're just like, wait a minute. The card was a Topps manufactured card. It was delivered as a redemption. It was then graded by PSA, magically just landed on Fanatics Collect without them talking to Heritage or Golden or any other platform. That's the part to me where it just feels like,
aren't you going to shop it around? Aren't you going to shop
should
it
be
around
shopping
if you're the
it around.
parent?
You should be shopping around.
Hey,
Who's
Matt,
going to market it best?
Let's. Oh, actually, Nick, you go
Nick,
first.
sorry.
I have a question about
this. Is tough because I've got inside stuff that I can't share, but I've got some that I can share. So, first of all, I know somebody else who had a patch redeemed. Okay, he shared all the emails and everything, and you are actually accurate. And this is a big shift in the winds. Fanatics Collect. Fanatics owns the redemption card, so it's vertically integrated. And if you redeem it, who do you think you're going to email and engage with? It's not Golden. It's going to be Fanatics. So of course they're going to have dibs on it. But further in that email, they actually incentivize you with a $250 credit to put it on the Fanatics Collect marketplace. So I aired this on Instagram, so that's public. I don't care.
Which I guess with a no name $250 means a lot. But like when you're talking the Paul Skenes card,
I'm just giving you an example. Example, right? So they control that. They have the customer's information. They know who this 11-year-old is, and we'll get into that in a second. There was also a deleted tweet that kind of messed things up. They were like, "Oh, it's coming to Fanatics collected this, deleted it. So clearly there was, a disconnect between, the PR team or some operational thing or whatever. And then I talked to your boy Sean about this walkthrough service. I don't know, LZ, have you ever had a card flown in a private jet anywhere?
Nope.
Matt,
never.
have you ever had a private
Not
jet?
that I know of.
I've
Not
flown
that
on
I
a
know
private
of.
jet, but not with a card for delivery.
No,
I wouldn't go to those lanes.
So
but
we
Fanatics
got that.
does have the resources for it. We'll say that.
All right, last thing then, LZ, we promised to let LZ talk a little bit.
I'm talking. It's fine.
Just interpreting that diary, okay? I'm sorry, everybody. That was coached. That diary was 100% written after the fact. I would bet my children on it. I don't know. Could have been his parent. Could have been a PR firm. Doesn't matter. It was coached. Nobody says they're 11 in their own diary. That's like weird behavior. Okay. That's like,
True.
I am 11
So
years
true.
old and this is the best thing I ever did. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. And here's the other thing. All this conspiracy stuff. When this airs, I would say we have T minus 2 weeks or less until we know the identity because, all right, I have a 10-year-old. LZ, you got what is he, 16 now? And
16
14?
and 14.
Matt, you got kids.
Yeah.
How long do 11-year-olds keep a secret? Not very long, dude.
No, especially if it's I just won like $1 million. Like, forget about it. That's
At
Hold on.
least
It's
six
been-
of his friends know what's going on.
It's been a month already, and that secret hasn't gone out, which
Yeah.
leads me to believe that a lot of this is potentially staged. Whether the
And
timing of it, whether
Yeah.
the kid, whoever it is.
Well,
That's the follow up that I wanted to bring up before I let Nick jump in was this whole December redemption. Like, why the hell didn't any of us hear about this in December? Matt, did you hear about it in December?
Again, like Nick said, I have privileged information that I can't share.
Okay, but it wasn't leaked. It wasn't leaked in December. Like, how come I didn't see any socials about it in December? Like, did you guys see socials about it in December?
Forget about socials. Let's just say this much. I don't even think the internal teams who are closest to this knew about it.
Yeah, I think it's my gut is it's an operational thing. Just that deleted tweet is a symptom, right? So you realize that there's a little bit of a disconnect between PR and operations. Something was probably put forward too soon and there was a mistake and it was redacted. This seems to me, especially when they have their operational challenges already, that they are, having trouble like keeping things under wraps.
Yeah.
Because if this really truly is an 11-year-old, we will know his identity within like weeks. Because he's going to tell Timmy and Johnny and Susie, and they're going to like talk. And somebody, because this information is actually valuable. When information is valuable, it never stays leaked for very long.
What is your theory? What is your theory on why they coached or fictitiously wrote this diary entry?
I think that, maybe he wasn't as eloquent as necessary, or there was a certain kind of like narrative the father wanted to steer, maybe just for public image.
I disagree.
Okay, what do you think, Matt?
I think it was such an amazing marketing opportunity, right? You saw the way the Pirates picked this thing up. Think about how much exposure that got in the press, right?
Yeah.
Let's just keep this going, right? That card wasn't hit. Like all the other debut patches are out for the most part. But the Skenes, like it took an extra couple months. They dragged the PR cycle a little bit. Like, again, I don't know if this kid is real. I don't know if the whole thing was staged, but they used this as an amazing opportunity. And by the way, even if they wanted it to seem obvious that it was staged, we're still talking about it. So they're winning.
Exactly. It's brilliant. They
are winning.
I'm always the conspiracy guy, but I actually believe that it was pulled by an 11-year-old. And I mean, just by talking to the person who delivered the card, there's information. Like, I feel like most of the 80% of this story is true. There's 20% we're missing. But does it matter in the end?
No,
it's it's going to get auctioned off. It's a cool card. I mean, it wasn't a breaker. That's kind of a win. I'm cool with how it went down,
And the story is what? It was out of a hobby box? Is that what it was?
Yeah. He was saving up for it.
First pack or second pack? What did he say? I think it was in his diary.
It is his diary. Yeah.
There's a lot of... Go ahead.
By the way, the other thing I was going to mention, which is really interesting and connected to a lot of this, obviously a lot of the debut patches have been coming out. I'm connected with a lot of high-end collectors, and I just spoke to my buddy last night, who's been one of the guys who's been acquiring a lot of these debut patches and super fractors. one of the things he told me is he ran into a situation yesterday where he was in a bounty war with someone, right? And they were publicly like outbidding each other, and it became almost a Fanatics issue. They had to go straight to the top with this. But like, this is a real business. And by the way, these guys who are capturing the bounties, just imagine if they're PCing these cards aren't making it to Fanatics Collect. So there's a lot of stuff going on between relationships with Fanatics, people who are offering bounties, Fanatics getting upset that people are offering bounties because they want these cards on their market.
Whether bounties are legal, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I know. And like the other thing that's crazy about this is Ken Golden said twice publicly that he was never contacted about this, and he kind of like hemmed and hawed a little bit about how like, oh, it's tough when, you know, Fanatics has all the customer information and everything, but he said himself Golden was not part of the game at all.
I mean, that's wild. If you're the parent, you have to shop this around. If you're buying a hobby box, that's an expensive box. You know who Golden is. All right, if you're buying a retail box from Walmart, maybe you don't even know who Golden is. I don't even know who that is. But hobby boxes are expensive. You know who Golden is. You absolutely call Golden. I mean, and a few of the other ones too. You just do.
Yeah. I'll say one other thing, because at Trove, I have a lot of insight. We work with a lot of the auction houses, and I know there are some auction houses that are willing to put more spend and marketing dollars behind big cards than others.
Yeah.
And it's foolish, and it would be short-sighted, especially for a parent who seems savvy and sophisticated enough to protect their child's identity, that they're going to go out and shop this thing, unless there was some sort of deal offered to them, not just upfront guaranteed money. It could have been something else. And we don't know that. And by the way, again, there's value in that. And this is a competitive market. And I can't fault Fanatics for whatever they did. They may have thrown the kitchen sink at this.
Of course they should. Of course. This is business, man. It's like you salt the earth of your competitor, and
every one of these debut patches, there is an email template. There is a plan. There is a plan that gets pulled out, and
Ken
like
whining, man. Ken whining.
4 emails get sent, and
I don't mind Ken whining.
Yeah, dude, he's pulled so much crap over the years. Like, he's whining about this. Give me a break, dude. You lost one. Like, you know, buck up. Buck up.
Yeah. All right. Well, more to come on this. Hopefully by the time this airs, we hear more, and we'll do some follow-ups. Matt, let's get into AI grading. We've been talking about AI grading for a long time. I mean, I was interviewing people at the National about AI grading. Even before that, me and Nick had an episode where it was innovations in the hobby. And I think the first one we brought up was AI grading. Like, everybody wants it. You're working on it. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, look, there's a good reason why it hasn't happened yet. It's expensive and it's hard. I was fortunate enough to be brought in by IAC, who's a big public company. They had been incubating this technology called Shoebox, and they wanted to bring me in as CEO to help run this company. And again, this is my relationships from Trove, you know, my history as an operator and, you know, exiting companies. They thought I was the right fit for this. So I came in and I looked at the business. I looked at the technology. I was like, no way. I was so skeptical coming in for a lot of reasons, a lot of the same reasons why the market's skeptical. You know, I looked at what Tag was doing. I looked at what some of these other companies were doing, and they're still in a position where they have to compete with PSA. You have to send us your cards. You have to, you know, run them through these high-tech machines and stuff. What we were solving for is trying to create a consumer-focused platform where people could actually scan these cards in from home. And part of the reason why we're trying to solve for this is the cost and the risk right now of grading, just given the prices that have gone up and just given the potential risk of losing money. You know, quick tangent, you look at the market right now, we've been talking about it right now, like a PSA 9 grading pandemic. It's like you're sending in a card to grade and it's not minting, right? You're not getting a gem and it's coming back a 9. There's a good chance that card's now worth less as a 9 than it was as a raw card. And when you add the grading fees to that, it's just like, it's a negative EV, you know, activity. And people are just like, I'm not grading cards anymore. So, you know, I sat down with our computer vision engineers. I'm like, guys, what do we got here? And they're like, well, we're scratching the surface and we're getting there. I was like, let's be honest. Is this something that we could do? And they're like, yeah. They're like, F yeah, we could do this. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. So I ended up coming in as CEO. I spun the company out of the incubator. I brought in an investor. I built this killer engineering team. And for the last year, we've been like fine tuning this product. And again, it's very hard. You have to solve for a lot of variables in the wild when people are actually scanning in their cards. And we've been able to solve for a lot of those issues and mitigate a lot of those issues. It's still not perfect, and it's going to get better over time as we get more data. And we're going to be releasing this tool in the next couple of weeks. But man, this thing is superhuman. And when I say superhuman, I'll grade cards sometimes and I'll be like, oh man, it's wrong. What's this piece of damage it found? And then I'll hold the card up to the light. I'll be like, holy crap. I was like, it found something that I couldn't even see the naked eye. And, you know, for me, I think what this is going to do, I think this is going to inform a lot of people who either grade their cards, waste a lot of money grading their cards. It's going to inform them which cards they should be sending in for grading, right? Or which cards maybe they're just going to sell raw. You know, we talked about high-end case breaks. This is an entire business. Mr. Minty does it. There are a lot of guys who do this pre-grading business. Again, you have to send your cards away. It's the same thing as sending them to PSA.
Yeah, this is disruptive, man. Like, I feel like I've talked to you about this offline and kind of whether this is a B2C play or a B2B play. And I think it's interesting. I've seen it in action. It's quite fascinating. You just use your phone and it finds like crazy stuff I would never see with a loop. But you think about that, right? There's bulk submitters in every region. You know, you go to a regional card show, there's always like for us, it's like Card Vault, or there's another one, or you have, like you said, Mr. Minty, or you have the high-end stuff. And people don't, you know, like most collectors don't know as much as we do. Like they don't know about like how to consign things, and like they don't know like about PSA's, you know, collectors club, and that saves you on the bulk order, like any of that crap. They just like, I got a bunch of crap and I don't know, up from down, you know, like what's going to grade. And they just hand it to a bulk submitter and they just rake in all that arbitrage. I feel like this is interesting because you could sort of empower yourself. I mean, you know, if you're a kid, this is probably easier. But you got your phone. Everybody's got a phone. Just look at the card yourself, and you save the $5 fee of, you know, the wiping or whatever they do per card. You know.
Hey, Nick,
$5? Those cards are $20. Those services are like $20+ dollars.
Are they really?
Sorry, yeah, for sure.
Nick, do you remember before the pod? So before we started this podcast, you and I mean, again, we're brother-in-laws. Everybody knows that. We always talk about business ventures, me and Nick. Always. Before we got into this pod, me and Nick talked to like 2 college students that had this idea. And we like sat down with them and they had this business proposal. They reviewed it with us. They actually brought their like mentor into the meeting.
It was like 2020.
So we didn't like screw them. Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, they had an app. I mean, he was like in his fraternity dorm. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't like prime time.
Wasn't ready. It wasn't ready yet. So yeah, we didn't jump on it because it wasn't ready. I mean, Matt, you touched on it. It's all about training this damn thing. You got to train it, and it's going to get better and better. So,
it's a capital intensive business. I'll tell you what's gone into it. It's been 2.5 years of us basically building a data set of all known damage, all known surface types, severity of damage, right? It needs to measure the difference between a white corner and a flip corner, right? It needs to understand the difference between a small scratch and a large scratch. It needs to take print lines into consideration. We had 5 professional graders on staff who are analyzing these images, annotating these images, and training. I mean, this stuff is like super high tech. It's above a lot of people's pay grade, but this thing actually works. And again, we were talking about the pre-grading element to it, even more so than the pre-grading. I want to capture the entire portion of the market that's underserved, the lower to middle market where 90% of the transactions are happening. We're talking about cards, average price $100. And a lot of people are not sending cards into grade at $100. So when we integrate our software into big marketplaces, it's going to basically create this new kind of trust layer that peer-to-peer marketplaces are going to basically gain trust in understanding that the cards that they're buying are in the condition that they're receiving them in. I think it's going to create more efficient markets. I think it's going to lead to higher volumes, and people are going to be transacting on this information. So I think this is going to be a way that, you know, we innovate and disrupt commerce. Not only in the card space, we're going to be doing this in a lot of other collectible verticals too.
See, if I was PSA, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's going to disrupt it. We've already said it a few times. Like, to your point around PSA 9s, right, Matt? Like, I'm going to use your service, and I'm not going to send the card in unless it gives me a certain score. I'm just not going to. So those PSA 9s, 8s, 7s, they're done.
That saves
I
you
mean,
from
yeah,
a crack out.
yeah,
So you send it in, and now you paid the fees, you crack it,
right.
and then throw it on eBay or whatever. Not that
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and
do
it's only
that,
going to
but
cost you a couple. It's only going to cost you a couple bucks to do it too.
exactly.
So that was gonna be my follow-up question is licensing. How are you gonna license this? Like, how's it gonna work?
Yeah, so there's a big B2B play that we're talking to a lot of marketplaces. We're even talking to grading companies that want to put this kind of in front of their process. Like we see this as something that's complementary to grading, of course. So this becomes like a top of funnel affiliate type play for some of our partners. So we're working on licensing deals. In a lot of cases, it's going to look different depending on what packages they offer. You know, if there's a monthly subscription, it will be baked into that monthly subscription. On other platforms, it will be an upcharge. You know, the end goal is really to be built in and integrated into a platform like eBay, where you're going through your regular flow to list a card, but instead you take a handful of pictures, sends it to our API, they get a grade and report back, you get the result, and you get to choose whether you want to add that to the listing or not. Because if it doesn't come back good, you don't want to add it, but at least you know what you got. And
Right.
if it does come back good, you know, you're going to fetch a premium on a raw card, which otherwise may have traded for the same price as, you know, a previous raw card comp of not so great condition.
So, Matt, how do you think AI grading will disrupt or help, or how do you think it'll like impact the ecosystem that PSA's built for grading?
Yeah, look, as I mentioned, I think it's a compliment. I think it's going to only enhance it. Right? The conversations that I've been having with my partners, obviously, everyone in the industry wants this. I think everyone believes it's a differentiator that's going to lead to more business. For PSA, I think it will only lead to people grading more cards, right? If they have confidence in the cards that they're sending in, I think it will give them more confidence to send these 10 cards that they were unsure about. So I do think it ultimately will enhance, you know, the overall grading ecosystem. It also increases the TAM significantly across the grading market,
What is TAM, Matt?
total addressable market.
Thank you.
But
Not
right now, the
everybody knows
total
that.
Yeah.
So,
sorry about that. Yeah. So the TAM right now in the grading world is, you know, if you think about it, it's probably cards above a certain dollar price because people, the cost of grading all in, if you're sending one card, it's going to run you anywhere from $30 to $50 with shipping and insurance and things like that. So there's a whole portion of the market, which is the most active portion of the market for cards that are not going to these grading companies. So I think it unlocks that part of the market in a big way.
Matt, I'm selfishly thinking of myself, right? With the impact of the market. It's very known that like me and Nick don't collect like the super modern cards, right? We're more into vintage and autographs and things like that. So I think it's absolutely going to help me with vintage because
yeah.
with vintage, like I know I'm never getting a 10. Like these vintage cards, like I'm never getting a 10 with these autograph cards. But knowing, ooh, shoot, this is going to be a 7 or a 6, like, all right, I'll take a 6 in this card. That would be awesome. Like I'm definitely going to send it in. So that is definitely a plus. Nick, did you have a thought around that?
Yeah,
Because
the
I
only
have a
thing I was going
question.
to say with the TAM, which you brought up very rightfully so the total addressable market is just like what is grading worth, okay?
Mhm.
And if you think about things that could increase that, there's a few, right? You get new hobbyists to enter the market. That's one way. You get hobbyists to grade more. That's another way. And I think this is a gear in that machine where if you have more confidence about a
Mhm.
card, then you're more willing to send it in. So now your confidence goes from 25% chance of me sending to PSA, now it goes to 75%. PSA makes more money, the hobby makes more money, there's more cards in circulation, everybody's happy. So it makes sense.
I'll take it one step further. If you think about TCG as a global market and the cost and the risk of sending your cards from Asia to get graded in the US, right? I think this is
Oh,
another add-on. I know we're on the sports card
Ooh.
the global
madness
aspect of
podcast
it.
right now,
Yeah.
but the global aspect is huge, right? So either you're transacting on our information or you're using it as a pre-grading tool to save yourself time and money by
Mhm.
sending only the cards that you think are going to jam.
Matt, I just thought of something. Could I take a really good picture that I find on like eBay, we'll say, of a raw card? Can I upload it and it grade it? Like, are you there yet? Is that something you're going to
That
work
would be
on? Because
so sick.
I mean, man, you could just cherry pick all the
I've
raw
held up
cards that are
those,
out
you know,
there.
those centering things that everybody buys and nobody uses because they're like freaking impossible to like interpret. So
Yeah.
I will take like an eBay listing and I'll put it in a Word doc and I'll measure it to card specs and I'll put that over it. It never works. It never works.
Yes, so
Uh,
that's a great question. I get that question sometimes. The bigger question I get is, can we grade a card that's already that's already graded. It's already encapsulated.
Ooh,
And the answer is
yes. Good question.
the answer is no. So right
Okay.
now we've basically optimized camera settings on the iPhone to be able to capture certain angles, to take certain things into consideration, like glare, and that's why you're picking up on certain things that you can't see otherwise. If you just take a top-down photo, one on the front, one on the back, there's absolutely no way, and that's why I've always been skeptical of these other companies who are like, "Oh, take one picture on both sides, we'll give you a grade." I'm like, it's
No.
nearly impossible, and
Interesting.
because when graders are in the room, they have a scope, they have a
All
loop,
different
they have a
angles.
light. Like,
It's a dark
you
room
need
too,
to-
usually. Yeah.
Is it really? I
Yeah,
didn't even know
usually,
that.
yeah, graders will tend to do, especially vintage in the dark. They'll have a
that's cool.
light, so the room will be dark, and they'll have lights over it, almost like a light box, or a loop or whatever. And in some cases, they're in the daylight, but I know PSA does a lot in the dark. I don't know how.
I've gotten a lot of requests for people who are like, "Could you try solving for the things that these grading companies can't do yet?" Right. So obviously, a hot topic in the space is Kurt's Card Care and the solution that you're actually using to fix your card. So people have asked me if I could figure that out. One crazy story that I just heard, which is a huge point of contention, something they're working on internally, is there are certain cards that made it to the Philippines in slabs, and Philippines, as you know, is hot and humid, and they were thicker cards, think like NT type cards that had solution applied to it. And what happens when there's a little moisture that's encapsulated and it goes into a warm spot? Well, these cards started growing mold on the inside. Could you imagine? And there's gonna come a time and a place where this solution, because the solution uses all these different types of chemicals, these cards are going to start disintegrating within those slabs,
Ooh.
which is going to be nuts.
I want to watch.
I know Nick is like scorched earth.
More
baby.
disruption.
Let's
Yes.
see it. Yeah.
You mean
Yes,
it's going to
burn
be
it
chaos and the pop counts are going to get disrupted? That
I
sounds
was just gonna
amazing.
say, pop counts are going to go down. This is
I love it.
crazy,
I love it,
baby.
especially if they maybe they'll even explode if there's enough heat inside the sonic seal, right? They can actually explode. That'd be
Kurt's card explosion.
Well, we've had Kurt on the
Surprise!
show. Kurt is a good friend of mine, fellow
Yeah, he's a
guitarist.
good-
So I like Kurt.
guy.
I don't care what anybody thinks. You can give me crap about Kurt's juice or whatever you got to say. I like Kurt. So
Matt, how long? So with your process, if I'm scanning a card, like roughly how long does it take?
So right now, I'd say is the slowest it's ever going to be. It takes 30
Sure.
to 60 seconds for you to
Yeah.
get results.
Yeah.
And for us, like that's the most compelling thing. Like when I see these results in real time, so what the consumer is going to see likely is just 4 subgrades and a final grade and then a digital slab of their card. What our partners and what we're potentially going to share later on is what we get after that 60 seconds is we get a card with like automated annotations with all the damage identified and zoomed in
Nice.
scan versions of that. And I'm like, I'm like, man, how did they capture? Like, it's crazy.
but PSA could
I'm even
use
blown
that
away.
to streamline things. So if you're if you're populating information ahead of time, that grader, he's only got we've interviewed graders. It's like 1 minute, LZ, 30 seconds,
Yeah.
1 minute a card.
Yeah,
They got 1 minute. If they could use like 10 seconds of that minute to just be like, all right, corner, centering, whatever, and then they look at the card, they might even be able to grade better or more efficiently.
more
We
efficiently.
haven't talked to PSA about that, but there are other
Yeah.
grading companies who have approached us about using it to streamline their process.
Nice.
There's one grading company that's talked about replacing their human process with this. So
Well, this is
it's coming.
That
The
that
robots
is-
are coming.
That's the
If-
future, dude. That's the future.
If the longest it's going to take right now is 60 seconds and it's only going to get better, can you imagine the field day that you're going to have at a card show, like at the dollar bin section?
You know the Scarface
sitting
money
there
machines?
scanning?
Like they throws the $100 bills for the cocaine deals and they just go
You know when I
cards
know
in.
when we win? We're going to be winning when we're at card shows and there's going to be signs that say like no shoebox scanning.
Yeah.
That's when I
Seriously?
know
So,
we
Matt,
win, right?
One important thing here. So we have it can people actually use this like right now? Is it in the iOS, app store or is it still in development?
So our app has been in the wild for about 2 years now. We have like 15,000 users on the platform right now. Right now, it's just a collection app. In the next week or so, I'm not holding myself to any deadlines. We're likely going to be closing the app to beta and just rewarding our early adopters with the tool to use on a free basis. We want people to go in there. We want people to use it. We want them to break it, right? We need to get into the consumer's hands to really, really fine tune this thing. So I would say if you're interested, go down the Shoebox app. It's in the App Store. You can find us on Shoebox AI on Instagram. go download the app, get in before we close it to beta, and get using the product. Look, it's not going to be perfect initially, right? Again, one of the things that we're solving for is all the variables in the wild, and you don't know, but you know, people are going to be taking pictures with their finger in it, and people do all sorts of crazy things. So. But when we do it in a controlled environment, the levels of accuracy are extremely high. You see this big studio behind me. I have all these rigs set up. I'm sitting in there cracking slabs and actually grading cards.
That's cool.
And the amount of times that I'm landing on, within a half a point or on the number has been insane. So it's just validating a lot of the stuff we've been working on for a long time.
Wow. That's awesome. It's very, how are you doing it? You must be really good at cracking. You good at cracking now?
I've gotten a lot better at cracking, but what I still can't control. This is the biggest issue. I'm like, there's a mess around me. Pieces are flying everywhere.
You got you
landing
put the glasses on.
Yeah, you got to wear that.
Hey, you know what? I got a random question for you guys. What is the most expensive card you have cracked?
That's a great question.
I'll tell you mine. I'll give you a minute to think about it. So,
well, the reason why I asked Matt, I got to think a minute for both the most expensive card.
Well, the most stressful, I guess.
The most stressful one I had was a couple nights ago. That's why I asked the question to Matt. So, 11, Millie Bobby Brown is going to be signing. She's signing soon, and I'm trying to collect the whole.
Wait, why aren't you telling me this, man? My daughter's all over this. Oh, geez.
Oh, crap. All right. I'll send it to you.
All right, thanks,
so
man.
I cracked a 10 2 nights ago, and I've cracked 100 cards now, and I'm good at cracking. I cracked a 10. And my screwdriver nicked the damn card.
I've done that, man. I've done that.
I immediately went to, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? How can I fix it? What can I do? What can I do?
You can sell it to me at a PSA 5 price.
Yeah.
And I'll get it signed for my daughter. It's perfect.
So pissed.
Mine's a little crazier, dude. I'm always like this. I'm an arbitrage guy. I love arbitrage. So I found a really cool one in collecting with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in when I doing this in 2021, I think, or 2020 with the Kareem stuff.
Right,
so I made 10, 20 grand off of Kareem easily. So I would take his rookie card, which is a 1969. It's a very tall, awkward card. And I made friends with the agency that signs his stuff. And at that period of time, he very rarely signed his full name, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I had bought so many things. I chatted it up with the guy. I think I sent him a gift card or something nice, for talking to me. And he's like, all right, well, yeah, for an extra fee, he'll $75, he'll sign his full name. At that point in time, having that on the card would double the value. So I was just buying up the problem was PSA kept nailing me. I cracked an 8 once. They made it a 6. I cracked a 7. They make it a 5. And it's just because Kareem's
that's the problem. The standards have changed too.
But I still made tons of money. And then they're like, oh, wow, we're getting a lot of business. And then they threw it on the website.
How many autos did you get? How many of his autos did you get?
Man, I feel like I did 15 of those. And I kept the one because I've got the 1969 set signed. The one I kept, it's I think it's a 610 or yeah, it's a 610 or a 69 or something like that. So I got a kick-ass card. I basically paid for itself, but those are the most stressful cards. The PSA 8, I think that's 10 grand. And I cracked it. It was very stressful.
So my story is even crazier than all yours because you'll find out what I sold this car during the pandemic. I was breaking a lot, and I was like, I want to find good wax somewhere. And we were living up in the Catskills, and I used to drive my kid's nanny back and forth to New York City. Sorry, it sounds like a really obnoxious, privileged thing to say, but anyway, I was totally degenning, and my wife was like, don't go anywhere, don't stop anywhere, wear your mask. And I was like, yeah, honey, I'll be fine. I was driving out of New York City, I'm like, all right, card store in New Jersey and the tri-state area. I'm looking at, I find this place in Jersey. I was like, all right, I'm gonna fly there. It's only 20 minutes out of my way. And I walk in there. What do they have there? They have a 2017 box of Optic football, which is the Mahomes rookie year. And I was like, man, at the time it was $3,000, which is more than I ever spent on wax before in my life. And I was like, all right, I'll grab this one, this one, this one. I ended up spending 10 grand, which was absurd. But I was like, I know I won't be back here for a long time. So I went home that night. I was opening the box, and there was one auto in the box. And what do I see? I see a blue. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, let this be something good. Boom, Pat Mahomes of 75 auto. And I was like shaking. Mind you, this is like month 3 of me getting back into the hobby.
Whoa.
So this put me on a path to lose a lot of money ripping cards after that.
Smart.
But
Smart.
it was the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. So I send the card to PSA. Now, mind you, the PSA, it's like 10 months for most cards. I already sent my childhood collection.
Oh, right, because it was back then,
Oh, back then.
I'm like 1,000 cards into this. So I send it at the highest service. I said, spend a couple $100. And the card comes back a PSA 8. And I was devastated. Because in my mind at that time, I thought any card that comes out of a box is going to be a PSA 10. I was like, of course it's going to be a PSA 10. These cards have black backgrounds. They were soft. Man, I watched about 20 videos on how to crack a card before I cracked that thing open. That was probably the scary. And this was early in my collecting career. So what ended up happening is I cracked it out successfully. I sent it to BGS. It came back a BGS 9. And the week before the Chiefs were playing Tom Brady and the Bucks in the Super Bowl, I made a bet with a guy that I met up blowout for him. If the Chiefs won, he paid me a certain price. If the Chiefs lost, so we basically, there was an arbitrage. We were making a bet on the game too. And the Chiefs ended up losing, and I got $9,500 for the card.
Ooh.
So it was like a $10,000 card that I could have destroyed cracking it out of it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's my big story.
So Matt, we're going to start to land this plane.
Yes.
LZ and I always ask, I know you listen to the show, so we ask all kinds of random stuff. I feel like you're an AI guy, okay? And obviously we've talked about AI grading for this episode. I don't know if people know what the singularity is, but the theory of the singularity is at some point a machine will be able to self-think and be more intelligent than the average human being. Mm-hmm. My question for all of us, I'll answer last, is A, do you think this will ever happen? And if you do, what year will it be?
It will happen. I think there will be plenty of people that try to stop it from happening, but there will be, and maybe it doesn't even happen in the US, there will be a country that will let it happen, first and foremost. I think it's going to be sooner than you think. I'm going to say no more than 10 years. No more.
All right, Matt.
So obviously AGI in my world is a big topic. AGI is artificial general intelligence. It's similar to Singularity. It's like when the intelligence actually surpasses or matches human cognitive capabilities, right? I have to tell you guys, I'm super close to this stuff. This stuff is like very close, and it's already happening. And the pace of innovation right now, because you got to think about the money that's now pouring into this space, right? We have the next 4 years of Trump, who's literally removed all shackles from capitalism and growth and innovation, and people are going to go nuts on this. I don't know if you saw DeepSeek coming out of China recently, but they created this like superhuman model that's already matched OpenAI's capabilities. They claim they spent a fraction of the amount. They claim they're not using the same amount of compute, which is the chips that they end up buying from NVIDIA. Turns out a lot of that
on the
stuff,
black market. It's the only way they got those chips.
Easy, killer. Easy.
So the info is now coming out that they've been buying a lot of these chips because they're not allowed to import them to China. They've been buying these chips on the black market. Mm-hmm. I just learned today that they believe that they've been scraping OpenAI's data. So they probably hacked into the OpenAI database. And that's how they were able to kind of accelerate this. At the same time, this AI... This
AI tempted to go down a rabbit hole with you.
We have like one of the top IT security guys in the country here.
Oh man, it's so funny. Oh Matt, let's do a whole episode. I want to do a whole.
We're gonna put people to sleep if we talk about
biting my tongue. I'm biting my tongue right now.
Then I'll give you my Joker chaos thoughts after.
So to answer your question, Nick, I think we're like 1 to 3 years away, and there's a reason why Musk is trying to colonize Mars, because he knows the robots are going to take over. We have to leave and go to Mars to be safe. So
yeah, there you go.
Oh yes, love that.
There's my tin foil hat.
It's funny when we're all a similar age here, like our mid to whatever, early to mid 40s, and the good news, like for us, is we've lived through a few pretty crazy technological changes. The internet. the three of us grew up in an analog world. There was no internet. We watched the world go from nothing to computers to playing Doom on a 2400 baud modem to holy crap, like my eyeballs have the internet. And that's happened fast. And you think about the adoption curve of ChatGPT, just a fun tool for the audience. Just go on Google Trends. If you can't find it, Google Trends, okay? And just have some fun on there. It's actually a way to track player values and card values and stuff like that. But type in like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or AI. The curve is like nuts. And you think 2 years ago, I don't know, maybe I used ChatGPT twice in a year. Now, I mean, my goodness, I use it for the thumbnails. I use it for show descriptions. I use it to. My wife is writing a note to the doctor. I'm like, run it through GBT first, so it sounds good. It's crazy, and I think the singularity is coming, and it's between you. I think it's 5 years out. I do think something gnarly will happen. Usually, the world breaks every 10 years, and it broke 5 years ago, and I think it's going to break again in 5 years. It's either going to be World War III or it's going to be some sort of AI catastrophe. Like, oh my God, we have no internet for a month or something like that, and it's going to be gnarly. It's going to be really gnarly.
You say gnarly. Other people say doomsday, potato.
Yeah.
I have to touch on one of the things you said because it's literally my favorite because I'm in tech. One of my favorite things to look at is the chart, which is the pace of adoption and the adoption curve. If you go back and you look at things like the automobile, the telephone, and you look at these slow moving charts for adoption, if you look at some of the new technology that's been launched, whether it's a smartphone, even the smartphone was a little bit slower. You look at things like iPhone and AirPods and stuff like that. The rate at which adoption happens because it's access to information now. It's now that we're in the technological age, people are more savvy. But that's part of the reason why I'm building what I'm building, because once technology hits and it's good,
Boom.
people will use it, and that's it. So
Excellent.
look, and that's the problem about the singularity that you mentioned. It's like when we see a cheap robot that we could bring in our house to be our nanny. It's like, oh, sure, of course we'll use that. And then all of a sudden they take over our house and they kill us and, we're left.
There's already one. There's one that's like
they're
13
cool
grand.
ones.
There's a cool one that's
They're
like
really
13 grand. It's made in China. It can do a lot.
I could do so much bad stuff. I want to reprogram
but it's not allowed to collect our information, right? If we use them.
No,
okay,
no.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me end in one other thing. So I know a lot of people in this hobby like to post on IG, and they're using TikTok, and they're using CapCut. CapCut is also owned by TikTok, everybody. Yeah,
of course.
So
I think we all found that out.
All those raw files that you are uploading to CapCut, who has access to those raw files that you're editing and removing what somebody said or deleting that slip in the video or this photo? That's all owned by whoever owns CapCut. So keep that in mind, everybody.
Just don't edit sex tapes on there,
Yeah. Like I said, man, I hope I'm not here for World War III because it's going to be some shit. Think it's like, oh my God, it's going to, be crazy. My son's got a little robot dog from China that I'm scared of already. So,
oh my God.
All right, let's land this plane. Matt, how do people, if they want to reach out to you or Trove or Shoebox, like just give everybody the details one last time.
Yeah, we didn't even get into Trove. We touched on that in the last show. I think most people in the hobby know Trove. Find your Trove. We're across all platforms. Shoebox, you can find us on Instagram at ShoeboxAI. You can go to our website at Get Shoebox to download the app. You could also find us in the App Store. Another thing that I created, which was super cool, Check AI is actually the technology that powers this. On Twitter, we have chck.ai. Is our collectibles bot, which is this automated bot that you talk to, you ask it questions, you tell it where you live, you ask it where the local card store is, you submit a picture and you say, what card is this? I can't figure out the parallel. What's the pricing? It knows everything. And this is powered by OpenAI ChatGPT, but it's super cool. People have been using it a lot. So you can find us across all those platforms. Get into the early beta for Shoebox. So you could get access to the AI grading when it comes out. But this is our year.
Matt, is that is Shoebox iOS or Android or both?
Shoebox is iOS right now. Okay. We're developing a web app that's going to be that you're going to be able to use from your browser, and will be available for other phones too.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Wow, what a crazy episode. That was fun.
Yeah, this is good.
That was great.
All right.
Guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you coming
Thanks,
on.
Matt.
Always.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.